Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and we have finally learned part of the original plan for Avengers the Kang Dynasty before Marvel Studios moved away from Kang as the big bad in the multiverse saga to Dr. Doom. And screenwriter Michael Waldron, the one guy involved with both the Kang and the Doom versions of the fifth Avengers movie, confirmed that part of that original plan involved the Young Avengers and this one particular Kang variant from the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania mid-credits scene. I'm going to break down what we just learned and everything we know about the shifting plans for this film. But before we get into it, be sure to check out nerdriot.shop, where we have a ton of great nerdy items that make amazing gift options as we head into the holidays, especially this spooky Face Your Fears shirt. Okay, so by now you know that Marvel Studios' original plan for the fifth Avengers film, as they announced it at San Diego Comic-Con back in July 2022, was for the film to be called the Kang Dynasty, and it was going to be written by Jeff Loveness, who wrote on the Loki series and wrote the script for Quantumania, and that this movie was going to be directed by Shang-Chi director Destin Daniel Cretton. From the little that was announced at the time about that version of the movie, we could assume that Jonathan Majors' Kang the Conqueror would be a big part of it, and Benedict Cumberbatch said in an interview that he was told he would be part of that version of the movie as well. Mike Waldron, who wrote the final screenplay for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and was the head writer on season 1 of Loki, was attached to write the follow-up Avengers movie, Avengers Secret Wars. Audiences had begun to get to know the character of Kang and his relationship to the multiverse in the finale of Loki season 1 back in July of 2021, and then more about him in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania in February of 2023, followed by Loki season 2 in November of 2023. Basically, the Kang variant, He Who Remains, defeated all of his variants in a previous multiversal war by harnessing the power of Alioth. He Who Remains then created the TVA and its void dumping ground, as well as the sacred timeline that the TVA would maintain. Sacred timeline, of course, being the full history of the 616 MCU as we've known it. He did this as a way to prune all branches of history that would lead to the existence of one of his rival variants, just so that he could stay in power. But He Who Remains was killed by the end of season 1, a death that Loki affirmed by the end of season 2 by replacing He Who Remains and his sacred timeline as the new god of stories of all of existence. Season 2 also established Kang variant Victor Timely, who is part of a double-inspired origin of the TVA alongside OB, and whose beginnings as a Chicago area candle maker were left unaltered now when the TVA handbook was not thrown through his window. Quantumania went on to tell us the story of the arguably worst of the Kangs, Kang the Conqueror, who was exiled by the other Kangs into the quantum realm. Ant-Man Scott Lang defeated him by banishing that Kang into a probability storm, and that film ended in an uncertain state where Scott Lang wasn't sure whether he was truly victorious over the Kang he fought in the quantum realm or not. At the time, I made some videos breaking down how Kang's green and purple colors were subliminally put all over that final scene of that movie. The Loki season 2 finale also referenced those events in the form of a TVA case file about Scott's fight with Kang in the quantum realm, with the implication that the other variants of the Kang Dynasty were all still on the loose. Really, the clearest vision that we received for Avengers the Kang Dynasty came in the mid-credit scene of Quantumania. We saw 3 Kang variants, Immortus, Pharaoh Ramatut, and the Scarlet Centurion, worrying that the Avengers killed the exiled one and that the heroes were beginning to touch the multiverse and take everything that the Kang Dynasty built. So Immortus says, "Let's stop wasting time," and he called in all of the other Kangs from across the multiverse. And we see a vast arena of appearing Kangs, all screaming for some reason. And the last of those screaming Kangs we saw before we cut to black was this one Lizard Kang. In general, the imagery was taken directly from 1988's Avengers 292 by Walt Simonson and John Buscema, when the Kang variants similarly debate in a big old amphitheater setting like this. Really, the whole idea of a smaller council of Kangs had been introduced back in 1986's Avengers 267. So that's what we had to look forward to for the next Avengers movie that Loveness and Waldron were cooking up. But those plans began to change with Jonathan Majors' legal troubles that came up starting in March 2023 that ended with his conviction in December 2023, at which point he was fired by Marvel Studios. At this point, I began to join many of my colleagues who had already expressed their concern back in February that Marvel should not have committed so hard to showing that all of the versions of Kang had to be played by one actor, especially since the Loki series and Spider-Man No Way Home established the convention that variants of characters can sometimes just have the appearances of other actors. But Marvel had already begun to talk about switching from Kang to Dr. Doom as the primary villain of this era of films back at their Palm Springs retreat in September 2023, and we know that Robert Downey Jr. was approached ahead of that in August of 2023. Marvel Studios confirmed their new plan for Dr. Doom at San Diego Comic-Con in July of 2024, where both the 5th and the 6th movies would now be directed by the Russo brothers, titled Doomsday and Secret Wars, and both written by Stephen McFeely. By now, Destin Daniel Cretton had left the Avengers 5 project and took on directing Spider-Man Brand New Day. Jeff Loveness took a bit of a mental health break, as did Peyton Reed after Quantumania. But since then, as Avengers Doomsday has been in production in 2025, we know that Mike Waldron has actually come back to help Stephen McFeely and the Russos craft this new Doomsday script. As principal photography for Doomsday wrapped a month ago, on October 2nd, Waldron clarified to The Wrap what his Doomsday scripting directing duties included. They asked, so you're writing on both Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars? And Waldron said, yes, I am. I've been back and forth from London helping that team out while in post on Chad Powers. And again, that's only possible if you have a partnership like this. If I can look at my producing partner and say, all right, I have to disappear into Marvel world and I trust your creative instincts enough to speak for the show. Adam and I have to be a hive mind in many ways. And then they asked, were you working on Avengers Kang Dynasty at all before that became Avengers Doomsday? And Waldron clarified, Kang Dynasty was Jeff Loveness, my friend, who was writing that with Destin Daniel Cretton, who's now doing Spider-Man Brand New Day. Because I was writing the movie after that, but there wasn't a filmmaker attached yet, I was just involved in all of those conversations. When that movie went away, I was working on what would become Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars for a time, and then they brought in the Russos and Steve McFeely right at the time we were going to make Chad Powers. As those guys got in and wrapped their hands around what these movies were going to be, I was off doing this insane thing, and when that finished, there was an opportunity for me to come back in and get to know Joe and Anthony and Steve and really just help however I could. That's what I'm trying to do, is just support them. So Waldron's referring to his new projects like Chad Powers, which is a great show. And recently he was on a Reddit AMA to promote that series, and Waldron finally revealed recently on October 28th what part of his and Loveness's plan for Avengers the Kang Dynasty would be. He was asked, without spoiling anything, as you're a writer on Avengers the Kang Dynasty, is there anything that you learned from those initial drafts of the script that moved over to help you write for the new version Avengers Doomsday? And Mike Waldron responded saying this, Jeff Loveness and I spent an afternoon pitching on the Young Avengers defeating a version of Kang, being so stoked about it, only to discover that that particular Kang carried a little card and said to be patient with him. It was his first day as Kang, and they were so bummed. I think it was going to be the Lizard Kang from the end of Kang Dynasty. I don't know. Anyway, we had fun. So I'm assuming Waldron was referring to the end of Quantumania, because that would explain that mid-credit scene, why it ended with this particular Kang with reptilian skin. It sounds like it wasn't just an example of the variety of Kangs, including some different species. It was to set up whatever this Act 1 conflict for the Avengers the Kang Dynasty movie script would be, that Loveness and Waldron were working on. It also sounds like there was going to be some attempts at humor when it comes to how some of these Kangs were going to be beaten. And actually, it kind of sounds like the sort of humor that He Remains gave off when he was explaining everything to Loki and Sylvie in the Citadel. But the Young Avengers being so important, it kind of confirms what many of us thought, that the Young Avengers were going to be part of the lineup of the heroes for Avengers the Kang Dynasty. And given the context of the question on Reddit that Waldron was answering, it sounds like the Young Avengers will also still be there in Doomsday. So we need to ask, who were the Young Avengers of that version of this movie going to be, and who could still be there in the lineup for Doomsday? New Rockstars is constantly working on 1,000 things at once. At a minimum, we're putting out daily videos, recording podcasts, researching for upcoming videos, managing our social feeds, coordinating with sponsors, and just, trying to keep everybody on the same page about what's going on with everything. It can be a lot, but the right project management software can make it easy. And that's just one of the things Odoo's all-in-one management software can do for you. Odoo's project application offers a comprehensive and flexible project management solution that enables individuals and businesses to track project progress, deadlines, and resources while collaborating in real time. With Odoo, you can get a clear overview of your projects. It gives you the flexibility to create projects with custom stages, create subtasks for complex projects, and assign a point person to be in charge. Odoo also makes it easy to set priorities, define tags, and set deadlines. Odoo lets you centralize and manage information in one place through a built-in chat app. You can send emails, add notes, tag your colleagues, and attach a file to any task, or schedule activities such as to-dos, calls, meetings, and reminders. You can also change how you view your projects depending on what you need, using a Kanban view to organize tasks by stage, a Gantt view for a more timeline-focused way of looking at things, or a list view for displaying all your data and performing batch actions. Odoo is simple, powerful, and an easy way to level up your organization. To get started, click the link in the description below. You'll get a free 15-day trial, no credit card required. Only select the apps you need. Any single app is free. And thanks again to Odoo for sponsoring today's video. Well, assuming this is going to be part of the vision for the multiverse saga that I witnessed at Marvel's panel at D23 in August 2022, which was the last time Marvel presented their vision to the public before the majors news changed everything in March 2023, we knew at that time that Ironheart was originally going to come much earlier and that the Marvels was originally going to come a lot earlier. Obviously, with the labor union strikes that would come the following summer, that also delayed a lot of things. I actually got to interview Kamala Khan actress Iman Vellani one-on-one twice. Once after Ms. Marvel finished in July 2022, and then again after the Marvels came out in November 2023. And in that second interview, Iman told me that the Marvels post-credit scene that introduced Kamala Khan to Kate Bishop originally had an additional character or characters who were also going to be in that room. And now looking back on that, I'm almost certain that one of those additional characters was going to be Riri Williams. Another character I'm pretty sure would have been Cassie Lang, Stature, as she was at the end of Quantumania. Rounding out this Young Avengers probably would have included Billy, aka Wiccan, Joe Locke, who would have been introduced in Agatha all along at a much earlier point, and his brother Tommy, aka Speed, Ruri Malika, who would have been introduced in Vision Quest probably before Avengers the Kang Dynasty was released. Now I know you're going to think, wait, how would that have ever been possible? I think we're going to know more later in 2026 when Vision Quest comes out and we're able to interview some of the people involved with it, but I've heard mixed reports from sources at Marvel that production for Vision Quest and some versions of the show might have been done before the summer 2023 labor strikes, and I've heard other reports that other parts of the production were done or maybe redone in spring of 2024. But assuming this intended Young Avengers plan also had Waldron involved, I guess that lineup probably would have also included Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez from Multiverse of Madness. Whether they were called the Young Avengers or if Peter Parker would have joined them in this fifth Avengers movie, they could have gone by a more proper name like the Champions. Either way, this was roughly the lineup that would have beaten down this lizard Kang. But in my first interview with Iman back in July of 2022, she confirmed exclusively to me that Kamala's time travel to save her own grandmother by using her bangle was also something that the actress saw as connected to Kang, and even revealed that the bangle had an original inscription that made this more explicit. Do you think Kang or He Who Remains might have planned specifically for Kamala to go back in time?
Yeah. Okay, so the inscription on the bangle used to be what is destined for you will come for you. We did change it after that, but I like to use that as a way of, justifying how Kamala goes back in time and why that was meant to happen, because there were so many questions and we really wanted to bring partition in the story. I know it's cramming a lot in episodes 4 and 5, but we didn't know if we were going to have season 2, and we had to put all our cards on the table and just show everything about this culture and the history of it. And so that line, what is destined for you will come for you, that used to be on the bangle, is kind of a good sense of, this was meant to happen, predestination, even if it kind of hurts the endgame time travel rules, but so does old Steve Rogers. So
exactly. Hey. And in my second interview with her in November 2023, she revealed that an earlier draft of the Marvels established the burial site of the second bangle was the burial site of Eon, who is the Marvel cosmic entity who represents time. Did naming them quantum bands imply any other historical owners of these?
I still think Eon's a contender.
Okay.
I think he definitely forged them. Did you have a theory about was it still Eon or?
My just explanation of canonically Eon created them. My theory is that they're not going to make Eon, at least right now, a physical presence.
I don't think they'll say Eon, but yeah. I swear there was a version of our script where Darben actually name drops Eon, this was his grave or something where they found it. In my head, that still makes sense.
So Kamala Khan having power over a bangle that would allow her to keep up with the Kang Dynasty's ability to manipulate timelines, plus Cassie Lang's experiences with Kang the Conqueror, plus the collective badassery of the rest, including Wiccan having the inherited chaos magic of the Scarlet Witch, gives us some insight in how kids like these would have been able to stop one of the Kangs, even if it was the shittiest one, the newest recruit to the dynasty. I also think Kate Bishop's involvement in the story also would have involved Clint Barton, as Jeremy Renner seemed to have some insight into the original Kang Dynasty plan, according to his statement on Breakfast Club Power 105.1.
I don't know. I don't know if there's the difference between gossip and then the difference between anything else. I don't know enough about Jonathan and his situation to know. I know they had big plans for that character, that's for sure. So whatever transpired, that sucks.
Now, in the past 18 months, you may have seen this document, or maybe some social media threads by accounts like Exiled Scooper in August 2024, summarizing this script, claiming to be a script draft of Avengers the Kang Dynasty written by Jeff Loveness, and it's dated April 8th, 2023. I have to say, this screenplay document, while it has been circulated in many circles online, is almost 100% likely to be fake. If you've ever read any screenplay before, you can easily tell how this represents the kind of AI slop, or maybe just derivative cliche-filled fanfiction that too closely resembles AI slop, put in an exposition-heavy format that no professional screenplay actually does. But really, the story follows the Kang from Quantumania drifting through an abyss, seeking Ravonna Renslayer, recreating some Gladiator-inspired hand-through-wheat-stalks visuals, culminating in some very easy-to-bullshit fan casting of Avenger lineups against the three heads of the Kang Dynasty that involves landmarks from major world cities getting destroyed a la Independence Day. If you want a full breakdown of the script, New Rockstars actually has had some plans for a while to further investigate this insane script that might even involve a staged reading by our full staff just to demonstrate how ridiculous it is. But when it comes to what version of the Young Avengers will stay in Avengers Doomsday, there was that concept art leak from earlier in 2025, concept art that the Russos said we were free to share in our videos because they said it wasn't art for the version of the movie that they were working on, but this art did come from an official artist who worked at Marvel Studios, and in the visual we see this bar setting with Wong, Peter Quill, Kate Bishop, Cassie Lang, Tommy, Billy, Kamala Kamala Khan, and Dupe, a fat green alien who joins the X-Force in the comics. Actually, a recent, probably bogus 4chan rumor that we broke down on this week's episode of the Rumor Rundown included this guy and actually called him Droop, but it was probably some AI slop that included a description of this concept art that appeared on other sources. But I can understand why Marvel fans out there, maybe a lot of you watching this video, aren't ready yet to discount all of these sources, because this same batch of concept art included the visual that used the likeness of Damson Idris as a new Black Panther. And Damson Idris just this week turned up at the Vogue World event holding hands with Angela Bassett, who was wearing a gown that was inspired to look like the Wakandan garb of Ramonda. So it's looking even more likely that this guy could end up being a recast version of T'Challa or some other Black Panther from another universe. So when it comes to the Young Avengers, who sure will no longer be defeating the easiest Kang of the dynasty, could some version of that team still be in Doomsday? Could they be in Secret Wars? Probably yes, at least in part. Comment down below with your thoughts and who you think will be showing up in Doomsday, if any of them. And a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Frederick Price, who supports us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the new Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.